Charlie and I now have the pleasure to introduce you to Jason Miner, the new Executive Director of 1,000 Friends of Oregon. Jason most recently worked for the Nature Conservancy and the endowed position of Jeffrey Hughes Director for Western Massachusetts. In this capacity, he managed all of the Conservancy's Western Massachusetts programs, directed conservation and science programs, managed legal and social conflicts, and was directly involved in philanthropy. He may be familiar to some of you from the early 2000s when he served as Conservation Director for Oregon Trout. Jason has a bachelor's degree in biology from Amherst College and both a law degree and a master's in environmental management from Duke University. His interests are wide-ranging. He is a triathlete, an international traveler, and served in his earlier years in such interesting positions as seasonal ranger at Grand Teton National Park. He will be moving to Portland with his wife, Tara, and their 10-month-old daughter, Sinyi. Jason brings remarkable talents in conservation and land use planning to the position, as well as a perspective and experience from both within Oregon and from outside the state. As he speaks, I believe you will know without doubt why he was selected. Please join Charlie and me in welcoming Jason to the 1,000 Friends community.
Thanks for that welcome. That introduction was more about my life history than I thought, than even I remembered. One thing, it sets up two things that I remember distinctly. One is, as was mentioned, I was a park ranger at Grand Teton National Park, which inspires most people to wonder why I ever left. I left Grand Teton and the job of park ranger to go back to law school and become an attorney, which will resonate with many of you in the room, that I left one of America's most cherished and favored careers to become one of its most maligned career members. I also, when I left Oregon and working on one of the most charismatic species, the Pacific salmon conservation, left to follow my wife to Massachusetts, where we built 2 careers in conservation. I left working on the salmon, which is, inspires great reverence in many people, to work on conserving a turtle that's about the size of a $50 and rattlesnakes, which most people swerve to hit when they're in the road. The opportunity to work for 1,000 Friends is a great opportunity. I was attracted to an organization that has such a storied history, such great staff, but even higher among those criteria were the retirement plan at 1,000 Friends, which most of you will know as Metro. And on May 18th, we'll find out if that's a vested retirement plan. People come to Oregon for thousands of reasons. They come for jobs, they come to ski, they come to vacation, they come because it's a great place to live. I came to Oregon because of the land use system. I was enamored of it. It was a beacon to me. I was a conservationist from the earliest days that I can remember. And I was inspired by Aldo Leopold and A Sand County Almanac, a book that many of you may have read. In it, Aldo talks about a land ethic, and he describes a land ethic as expanding the community of interest to include the soils, the waters, the trees, essentially the land that we live on. That land ethic, I think, is embodied in Oregon statewide land use planning law. To me, it's the best example that we have in the country of taking land and treating it not as a commodity, not as something that is fungible, but as something that is more sacred. And that is what brought me here to practice land use law with Ball Janik originally, and then to go on and conserve the great land of Oregon in working with Oregon trout. Robert Liberty mentioned Oregon moments and mentioned a couple of them, and that brought to mind an Oregon moment that I was able to experience. Working with the Oregon Natural Desert Association, whose new director was here as part of the 35 Under 35, I had the great opportunity to go into Steens Mountain and descend into Wild Horse Canyon, a place that many of you may have viewed from the summit. And in that area, I was part of a team pulling old derelict barbed wire fence that was no longer going to be used because the area had been designated a wilderness area and grazing no longer would occur. After 3 days of hard, back-breaking work pulling fence, we began to haul ourselves back out of Wild Horse Canyon. And on the way back up the head wall, I saw an enormous boulder that was sitting in the path. And I took the opportunity to take a rest and sit down on that boulder and survey the canyon beneath me. And it was a beautiful canyon stretched out with sagebrush. And when I looked down from the rock, something even more amazing overtook me, and that was lying on the ground was a perfect obsidian arrowhead. And it occurred to me that I was not the first person to sit there and survey the landscape. That in fact, hundreds of years before me, a member of what is now the Burns Paiute tribe had probably sat there, surveyed the landscape, and been inspired by the same things that then inspired me. I think that that is a great legacy. It is the legacy of Oregon's land. It is the legacy that we inherit as the defenders of Oregon's land use system. And I am happy to step into line with Henry Richmond, Robert Liberty, and Bob Stacy and inherit that legacy in leading 1,000 Friends. I do want to say, a couple of things about 1,000 Friends and where I see us going in the future. Land has always been critically important to me, and I've always needed to be in touch with soil and water. I've always needed to go to the places that we can serve and feel the water run through my hands, whether it's the Imnaha or the John Day or Elk River or the Sixes River, the great rivers that cross Oregon, or the soils of Wasco County or Wallowa County or Harney County. I've always been a person who is about land. It's always been what inspires me. And I think that that's one of the great things about 1,000 Friends. Since its inception, it has reached out to all the counties of Oregon and tried to involve people from all walks of life. Our next great challenge is to confront the new issues that confront people in urban and rural areas, that unite people in urban and rural areas. Those challenges traditionally were land use, but in the future, I see a new role for us. I see a role in talking about climate change and discussing how farmlands, forest lands, and urban uses all impact carbon storage and climate change. Those are the same issues that united Oregonians to pass land use reform in the first place, and they're the same issues that can unite us now. Water is another compelling issue that I think more and more will dictate how we approach land use in Oregon in the future. Our agricultural areas from Bend to Prineville to the Willamette Valley all rely on water, and how we use it, how we share it between urban and rural uses will be more and more an issue in the future. We have the opportunity now to take those issues, which have the potential to divide urban and rural areas, and use them instead to unite us. One thing that has become incredibly obvious, having left Oregon and looking back at it from a distance, is, as Jefferson Smith said, that there is far more that unites us than divides us. I think that the same thing that motivates people in rural communities, finding a livable place to call home, a place that's safe for your children to grow up in, a place where there are opportunities, jobs, a meaningful way of life, a livable community, a place that your own kids might return to and have opportunities themselves. These aren't things that are rural or urban. They aren't things that are dependent on whether or not you live on a paved street or a dirt street. They are shared whether you live on Main Street or even if you don't live on a street at all. In the future, you'll see 1,000 Friends speaking to these cross-cutting issues of climate change, water, and land, using them to unite the same constituencies that passed land use planning in the McCall era. I also think you'll see us promoting the best land use models, the best of urban planning, the best of transportation networks, the best rural working lands conservation that has come of the past 35 years. And you'll see us telling the story of how this land ethic, how Aldo Leopold's land ethic has served Oregon and her people so well. When I took this position, I spoke with people across the state who I've worked with for the past 15 years, and every one of them had the same message. The same message came back to me. Oregon's landscape looks the way it does because of 1,000 Friends, and that is a great legacy. It's a great mantle to inherit, and I'm proud to lead this organization into the future. In that leadership, you'll hear me reinforce consistently that there is one Oregon, and we are its 1,000 friends. Thank you.